as you can see, you've made some changes to the room, and also since the game is Halloween themed, the outfit seemed appropriate. But anyway, how's it going, everybody? And welcome back. We have finally reached the climax of... Wait, that doesn't sound right. It's about time we got the game that finished... Oh, fuck. Martha. Arkham Knight. You saw the title. You know why you're here. Let's just get on with it. To tell you the truth, I actually wasn't around when the game was announced. At the time I was in Nova Scotia dealing with something that I won't talk about, but by the time I got back and when I saw it, I was hyped. Was I concerned that the announcement came right at the time that Arkham Origins was also unveiled? Fuck if I cared, it was a new Batman game made by Rocksteady. I would keep up with it through various E3s, Game Awards, and even when it launched back in June of 2015. But I wouldn't get to play it until Boxing Day of that year, when I got my first PS4 with the game bundled with it. And also I blew off ice fishing with my uncle. Yeah, sorry about that. Not only was it the first PS4 game I ever played, but it was also the game that launched my YouTube career. I haven't played the game in full since I did that playthrough back in 2016, and when I decided to start my review channel with this series, I was curious to see how my opinion would be after everything was all said and done. For this review, we're looking at my original copy for the PlayStation 4. The case has definitely seen better days, but I was still able to partake in this grand finale to the series. So then, are we ready to cap everything off? Well, let's not beat around the bush any longer, and let's look at the story. We begin this tale 9 months after the events of Arkham City. Gotham has been relatively quiet for the most part until the Scarecrow shows up, threatening to douse the city with his fear toxin. After the population is evacuated, Batman and Commissioner Gordon get to work on stopping Scarecrow and bringing everything back to order. In time we arrive at the Ace Chemicals factory, and this is where we first come across the new mysterious villain known as the Arkham Knight. Jason Todd. It's just Jason Todd. Okay, I feel enough time has passed so we can really talk about it, and boy do I have some things to say about him. Firstly, he's not an intimidating bad guy whatsoever. He just comes off as a whiny bitch, mostly because Crane wants to scare a guy who isn't afraid of anything, and he won't let Jason kill him until he does. So most of his dialogue consists of him throwing insults, and it can become ear-grating very early on. Also, despite knowing everything about Batman, all of his plans fail massively, and it just makes him look like a complete tool. Not to mention, but they make it extremely obvious who's under the mask, especially if you have any knowledge of the Batman mythos. You know, maybe throwing in flashbacks to a character we had no idea existed previously wasn't really the smartest thing when the main villain is supposed to be a mystery. Back to the story. Batman manages to stop Scarecrow's plan, but before he can apprehend the straw man, Oracle gets kidnapped by the Knight, which gives Crane enough time to escape. Also, we got doused by some fear gas, but I'm sure nothing bad will happen. Oh, for fuck's sake! Come on, guys, really? You couldn't just have one game without him? I hate to sidetrack again, but I just have to talk about this. So it turns out the cure we took in Arkham City didn't really work, since we still have a bit of the Joker's blood, which not only spawns a hallucination to follow us around, but is also causing us to transform into the Joker. It also leads to a side plot involving other Joker-infected people, and what this all amounts to is that the Joker is the main villain again. Look, I love Mark Hamill, and he has some really great moments in this. But I am just so sick and tired of the Joker at this point, so I don't really care about this plotline as a whole. So, after escaping the plant, we tell Gordon everything about Barbara, including her secret identity and the fact that she was kidnapped, with Jim having a somewhat appropriate reaction. In due time we track Oracle's location, but it turns out she wasn't even there, so we decide to almost crush him on Skull with the Batmobile. With intel from Nightwing, we confront the Penguin, who tells us that Scarecrow and company are taking over some airships from one Simon Stagg, who may or may not be working with them. Turns out he is, and he's developing this thing called the Cloudburst, which we'll see a bit later. Due to some bullshit, Scarecrow pieces out, and after an obviously fake death scene, Batman asks for the help of Poison Ivy, who we locked up earlier, since she's immune to Scarecrow's toxin. After rescuing some trees, never thought I'd say that, and a tiny encounter with Harley, the villains decide to activate the Cloudburst, blanketing the entire city in toxin, proclaiming it as the City of Fear. You think the plan would have worked better if, I don't know, the city wasn't evacuated? Yes, the plan needs to be stopped regardless, but it feels so strange for someone trying to put the fear in people. You aren't really doing your job right when you yourself told them to leave. Also, doesn't this cripple all the militia soldiers who are patrolling the watchtowers? Not to mention all the roadblocks and APCs you have on the street. What about the drones? Are they powered by the Nimbus cells? If they weren't, how would you know that they could still function? Who thought any of this was a good idea? Also, if this cloudburst shit is still functioning by the next day, we know that other superheroes exist in this universe, so Superman will just save everyone in a matter of time anyway. You know, when he's not murdering people, like that would never happen.
No. No.
Oh shit. In time, the cloudburst is destroyed, and Ivy uses the last of her power to extinguish the fear gas, costing her life in the process. Oh, you see, she's not so bad. Still pissed about the Batcave, though. Bitch. Well, now it's time to circle back to Commissioner Gordon, who got himself kidnapped, and after tracking him down, we finally have a somewhat boss with Jason, and it sucks. After saying our sorries, we head to the roof with June to take in Scarecrow, and in the process, we learn that Barbara never died at all! Shocker! With a fake betrayal and some free-falling, we take Babs back to the GCPD, and after a massive tank battle, we learn that Robin was kidnapped by Scarecrow. This prompts Batman to surrender himself not only to save Tim's life, but also Jim, who we saw fly away in the helicopters earlier. After a fun wink to the audience, we arrive at what remains of Arkham Asylum, where we are strapped to a gurney and Scarecrow forces Jim to remove the cowl on live television. Now that the world knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman, Crane injects us with some of his fear juice, and at the same time Batman has an eternal battle with the Joker, which he obviously wins because...
I'm vengeance.
Get out of here, Pattinson.
Hi, Freeze. I'm Batman.
What?
I'm Batman.
No, stop.
I'm Batman.
Okay, that is cool, but I'm talking about this.
I am vengeance.
I am the Knight. I am Batman.
Thank you. With the Joker purged, I guess? Batman stops Scarecrow with a bit of help from the Red Hood, finally putting this night to an end. Okay. 1. Why didn't Batman take Scarecrow down as soon as the truck doors open? It's not like he's much of a threat anyway, since at this point he's all alone with no backup and all he has is a gun, which you've disarmed plenty of times beforehand. 2. He could have broken free at any time. It's not like he needed Jason anyway, since this character is known to be a master escape artist. 3. Why the fuck was Jason even there? Did Bruce saying sorry really work? Is there something I'm missing here? 4. Where was the rest of Batman's allies? Even if Catwoman isn't saved at this point, Nightwing is still in the city looking for white vans. Depending on which ending, Azrael could have chipped in a little. And if you finished all 3 side missions, this is even more mind-boggling. Besides them, there's also the Justice League, so... what gives? 5. How does locking the Joker up just cure Batman completely? Even if the mental aspect of this ridiculous disease is beat, wouldn't he still physically turn into the Joker anyway? Last but not least, why is the finale like this? There were so many better ways they could have done this, but the final product just leaves my mind scrambling with how many stupid decisions were made, and the plot holes that just anger me to no end. God, my head is hurting. Let's just finish this recap already. With Scarecrow locked up, Bruce activates the Nightfall Protocol, which upon arriving home, it blows up the mansion leading to— God damn it! I'm done. Jeez, what a mess of a story. If it's not the structure that leaves you perplexed with more plot holes than you can fucking count, it's the fact that almost every character is a complete idiot who makes the worst possible choices imaginable. It's really sad that the only 2 characters I can root for are Lucius Fox and Aaron Cash, who are just doing their jobs. Still, that doesn't compare to who I think is the worst offender, which is Batman himself. No disrespect to Kevin, who always gives his A-game with what he's given, but besides being the version of the character who does everything alone, which is a tire trend anyway, pretty much everything he does is just wrong, and it comes off like he's just being a massive emotionless dick. There were so many avenues they could have taken with this character after Arkham City, and they do absolutely nothing substantial. Getting into the other cast members, the returning ones do a fine job, and some of the recastings like Gordon and Scarecrow I enjoy a lot. The ones I don't like are Barbara and Arkham Knight. They just feel miscast, and in Jason's case, it's even more weird since Troy Baker played Tim Drake in Arkham City. As for Barbara though, I know that she wasn't really a main character in the previous games, but Kimberly Brooks did a great job of the performance, and this decision feels especially strange given that this is the grand finale and she's not a part of it. Alright, I've just about had enough talking about this dumpster fire of a story. Let's move on to gameplay, for Christ's sake. All the gameplay elements that we know and love from the previous games are here and have evolved to what I think is near perfection. Combat is fast and powerful, while stealth has enough new bells and whistles to keep it interesting. To a degree, but I'll talk about that more later on. I'm just going to focus on new additions, starting with combat. You can now do takedowns with the environment, which is pretty rad. Beating enemies into the ground is a great inclusion, and it's so satisfying picking them up into a beatdown. Last thing to mention is that you can use various objects in the environment like bats and pipes as weapons. That's me! He's talking about me! I'm the asshole throwing boxes now! Stealth only has one new addition, but I want to mention first that the majority of these sections are just plain bad. They're poorly designed and not a lot of thought really went into them aside from the two-faced side mission, since you aren't in grates the whole time. As for the new mechanic, we have the Fear Takedown. Time slows down and it allows you to knock 3 to 5 enemies out in quick succession. I wouldn't say they're as broken as the shock gloves, but they can be heavily abused in the right situation. At various points in the game, you might be joined by a fellow crime fighter or partner to kick some ass, and this is a good compromise since I feel co-op just wasn't going to work. When it comes to gliding around, there really isn't nothing new, but I will say it's the most fun in this game. The sense of speed and control is just incredible, and I would say it's actually more fun than driving around. We'll get to it. Pretty much all the gadgets from Arkham City are here, with a couple of new toys to play with. First up is the Disruptor, which is used for jamming weapons and tagging vehicles, allowing you to track them. Second is the Voice Synthesizer, which allows you to open certain doors and trick enemies using other people's voices. Yeah. Last thing I want to mention is that I have mixed feelings on how picking gadgets work. Instead of using the D-pad, they decided to implement a gadget wheel and it works. It's something you'll get used to as you play the game, but when it comes to picking a gadget quickly, it's awful. Talking about enemy types that crank the dial to 11 with anyone involved with the militia. Yeah, I don't know where to start with this exactly, but no, we'll just rapid fire this bitch. First we have the medics who can revive fallen enemies and give mooks electric shields. Ninjas who can drop off walls and drop off each other. Big armor guys with blade shields or just shock gloves. Sentry guns, enemies who can trigger in detective mode, and enemies who are just immune to your detective mode. It's definitely a neat challenge, but sometimes it can be a bit much, and certainly not so friendly with newcomers. Last thing to talk about is the main selling point of the game, and that is the Batmobile. When it comes to just it's amazingly satisfying and makes you feel like you're on patrol, despite the fact that you're destroying/murdering everything in your way. One of my favorite things to do is eject out of the seat and go into an ultra-fast glide. But it's the other half of the equation that's a major issue with the game, and it's the tank battles. Very frequently you are bombarded by the malicious drones, and this just becomes soul-wrenchingly tiring. You're already spending a majority of your time in the car, but throwing in these boring and repetitive battles just brings the game to a screeching halt. Another frustrating thing is that when you look at the tank battles on their own mechanically, they're actually kind of neat. The issue with that is that it happens so often, and this gameplay doesn't work for Batman whatsoever. I don't know where else to mention this, but tracking clues and doing stealth sections in the Batmobile is just plain stupid. So, after all that, let's get into the other stuff with this game, and buckle in folks, this is gonna be a long one. Graphics are absolutely stunning, and I would still consider this one of the best looking games of the last generation. There's so much effort and detail that it always amazes me every time I play it. Just like Origins, music isn't really memorable to me aside from the menu theme. It's nothing bad, but I just can't think of another piece right off the top of my head. Bosses are just plain lame. If it's not a tank, it's a QTE. There's not one that stands out to me as something more than bad. Now it's time to talk about the open world, which is apparently 30 times larger than Arkham City, and I really like it. It's fun to glide and drive around in, and I always get a kick of beating the crap out of thugs whenever I feel like it. With an open world superhero game comes a bundle of side missions. Overall, there are some that I enjoy kinda, but most others are not very good at all. like the militia stuff, which I find tedious and annoying and is basically half of what you'll be doing in the open world. These are just not fun, and it all leads to a repeat Arkham Knight boss with Deathstroke, which just rubs more salt in the wound. Some missions like Firefly and Man-Bat are kind of fun. Azrael and Hush are disappointing plot-wise, especially how well they were set up in Arkham City, and a couple like Deacon Blackfire and Professor Pig feel very last minute. The best side missions are definitely the DLC ones, but I'll get into that soon. Challenge maps, concept art, the model viewer, and New Game Plus are all here and accounted for, except for the new intro. I mean, what the fuck? I wanted to get at least one scare in here. Oh god! Oh yeah, I almost forgot this game has a photo mode, and it's alright. I mean, it isn't the best around, but you can make a kick-ass album cover. Time to talk about the Season Pass, which has some good stuff going for it, and some other stuff which I'm really not too fond of. Just to make this a bit easier for me, I'm just going to group them into separate sections, starting with the challenge maps. Honestly, not really much I can say besides that most of these are a nice addition, but I'm not the kind of person who plays challenge maps a lot. Most of these packs are just kind of whatever, but the one that stands out to me as awesome is the community pack that brings back classic maps and some new ones like Crime Alley and the Monarch Theater. I love this, and the fact that it's a free download is just icing on the cake. Now on to the story packs, which I'm very mixed on. There's things I like about them, but they have some aspects which disappoint me. I'll just say this now, the Batgirl story is the best one by far. It's the perfect length, and the story itself is really entertaining. Even though Tim Drake is there, I mean, what the fuck? Red Hood, Harley Quinn, and Nightwing story packs are fun, but they're just too short to really make something out of them. Also, the less we talk about Robin and Catwoman story packs, the better. So now we have the Season of Infamy, which is an expansion that adds 4 extra side missions, and these are the best side missions in the game. They're not perfect, but I feel these have a more satisfying payoff than anything the main game has to offer. But just for fun, let's take this one at a time. The Mad Hatter is okay in my books. It's pretty harmless, and I love the end of it with the trip down memory lane. I'm a fan of Killer Crocs just from the story alone. Even though I don't enjoy his boss, or design for that matter, his plot is good, and I always enjoy more team-ups with Nightwing. Mr. Freeze has some dull moments involving tanks and stealth, but the ending with Nora being awake more than makes up for that. Also turns the entire map into a winter wonderland, which is cool. The beginning was a bit slow for the Racial Rule one, but after arriving at the hospital is when everything kicks into high gear. The choice at the end is why I think this is the best of the bunch. Honestly, the whole expansion itself is worth the price, and I recommend you check it out. Last of the Season Pass is the various skins and Batmobiles, and these are always awesome. A lot of them are reused, which is a bit of a bummer, but the detail on these are absolutely incredible. My favorites are definitely the 89 movie skin, Batman Beyond, and... oh, he's back. My boy is back. There you have it. Best game confirmed. For the Batmobiles, besides having lazy repaints, there are also a variety of classic vehicles from movies and television, with my go-tos being the Keaton-mobile and the Arkham Asylum Batmobile. Just like Origins and Asylum, there is some PlayStation exclusive content, which includes the 60s Batman skin, Justice League 3000, and most recently the R2 Dark Knight skin. There's also the Scarecrow racetracks, but I forgot to put that in the script. It's a shame because other 60s related DLC came out for other consoles, and everyone has been wanting the R2 skin since the game's release. Hell, I even did a rant about it on my old main channel, and it's one of my most popular videos there. As of December of last year, we got some content in the form of Anime Batman and Zero Nod Batman and a free update. This is great since the only way you can get them beforehand was having a WB Play account, which is no longer an option. Like I said, the Season Pass has some stuff going for it, but even though it's not selling at $40 anymore, I'd still wait for a price drop. Last note I want to leave on is the completion reward, because after doing everything in the main campaign and New Game Plus, what do you get for your troubles? A repaint of the default skin. Oh. So, that's 100% reward, huh? Okay. 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 I think I got it all out there. Let's close the review out, shall we? In some aspects, Batman Arkham Knight really added some much appreciated improvements and turned out, in my opinion, to be one of the best feeling games of the franchise. If that makes sense. But in other ways, it made some weird and downright bizarre decisions that left us with a game that feels like a missed opportunity more than anything. Besides the god-awful story, the side missions as a whole are just plain underwhelming, and the tank mode has no use being in a Batman game and only extends to pad out game time. There are some good things to point out. I love the on-foot gameplay, driving around in the Batmobile is fun, and the game still looks amazing despite being released fairly early in the last generation. Honestly, it's kind of hard for me to recommend this game since it has a lot of problems and it doesn't really lend itself to people who haven't played the other games before it, and even to the veterans who definitely have a challenge ahead of them for sure. If you're a fan of the other games, I'd just stick to a story playthrough like I did with Origins, since like that game, I feel going the extra mile isn't really worth it at all. You can find the game on pretty much all platforms, and even though it's relatively cheap now, I'd wait for a sale. This marathon has actually been fun if I'm being honest. I can always count on the Batman games to give me an enjoyable time, and despite not having the highest regards for a couple of these games like Knight and Origins, I can find something to admire and have a good time with in the end anyway. To the folks over at Rock City Studios and anybody else that had a hand in making these games, I just want to personally say thank you for not only giving us a franchise that will be remembered and cherished, but also redefining a superhero from someone who was a dead end in the industry to a pillar of the genre that will be shined upon for years to come. We love you, Batman, and here's to a bright future. I can't believe it. We're done. We're actually done with these games. Yep. No VR spin-offs or mobile games to look at here. Surely none of them exist. Alright, fine. I'll look at them. But not now. Maybe I'll look at them when that Suicide Squad game finally comes out. I mean, it is in the Arkhamverse after all, but... man. I'm all Batmaned out. What to look at now? You know what? Fuck it. Let's take a dive in the Marvel Universe. And just for the hell of it, we'll cap it off with the Avengers game. Until we meet again, I hope you all have a great night. Thank you all so much for watching. Take care of yourselves.